welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. Dr. Zephyr Vale, NASA Space Weather Prediction Center, Goddard Space Flight Center, Greenbelt, Maryland. March 15, 2025, 6:42 Greenwich Mean Time. The magnetometer readings were impossible. No solar event in recorded history had ever registered this magnitude. I've been monitoring space weather for 12 years. I know the difference between instrument malfunction and genuine solar activity. What I was seeing on my screens at 6:42 GMT defied everything I understood about our star's behavior. The Solar Dynamics Observatory had detected an X-28+ class flare erupting from active region 3628. For context, the largest flare in modern records was X-28 in 2003. This wasn't just matching that record, it was obliterating it. My preliminary calculations showed X-45, possibly higher. The spectrometer data indicated a coronal mass ejection of unprecedented scale launching directly toward Earth. Aurelia, I need you to verify these readings. I called across the operations floor to Dr. Aurelia Marsh, my NOAA counterpart. She was hunched over her own workstation, probably reviewing the routine aurora forecasts that had seemed so important an hour ago. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption. It's 6 in the morning, Zeph. Can't it wait until the day shift? Look at SDO feed 7. Tell me what you see. The operations center hummed with the white noise of computers and climate control systems. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, dawn was breaking over the Maryland landscape, painting the sky in deceptively peaceful pastels. In 30 minutes, the morning briefing would begin. In 72 hours, none of this would matter. Aurelia pulled up the solar imagery on her secondary monitor. Her expression shifted from irritation to confusion to something approaching panic. That can't be right. The scale must be wrong. I've run diagnostics twice, all instruments nominal. I pulled up the magnetometer data, watching the needle swing beyond maximum range. Ground-based observatories in New Mexico and Hawaii are confirming. This is real. The coronal mass ejection appeared on the imaging systems as a massive bubble of plasma expanding outward from the sun's surface. Under normal circumstances, most CMEs miss Earth entirely. Space is vast, and our planet is a small target. This one was aimed at us like a bullet fired from point-blank range. Transit time. Aurelia was already reaching for the emergency protocols manual. 18 to 20 hours for the radiation storm. 60 to 72 hours for the main CME impact. I was running calculations on 3 different systems simultaneously, hoping at least one would give me numbers I could live with. They all agreed. Aurelia, this isn't a standard geomagnetic storm warning. I don't have words for what this is. The morning shift supervisor, Janet Kim, chose that moment to arrive with her usual efficiency and travel mug of coffee. Morning, team. Anything interesting overnight? I looked at Aurelia. She was staring at her screen like it might change if she wished hard enough. The weight of what we'd discovered was settling on both of us like lead blankets. Janet, I need you to initiate SWPC Emergency Protocol 7 immediately. Janet's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Zeph, Protocol 7 is for events that threaten critical infrastructure. We haven't had a 7 since never. We've never had a 7 because we've never detected anything like this. I turned my primary monitor toward her, showing the flare classification and CME velocity readings. This event is approximately 50 times more powerful than the 1859 Carrington event. The Carrington event was our baseline for catastrophic space weather. Telegraph systems worldwide had failed. Aurora were visible as far south as the Caribbean. Telegraph operators received electric shocks, and some telegraph lines continued working even after being disconnected from their power sources, running on induced current from the geomagnetic storm alone. That was 1859. We had telegraph lines and gaslight. Now we had power grids, satellites, GPS navigation, internet infrastructure, computerized vehicles, fly-by-wire aircraft, electronic banking, digital everything. A Carrington-level event today would be catastrophic. This wasn't Carrington level. This was extinction level. Janet set down her coffee with trembling hands and reached for the red phone that connected directly to NOAA's Space Weather Operations Center. I need the emergency contact list for power grid operators, satellite companies, and aviation authorities. While Janet began the notification cascade, I opened a secure channel to our international partners. The European Space Agency's Space Weather Team in Belgium, Japan's National Institute of Information and Communications Technology, the UK Met Office's Space Weather Operations Center. If this was real, everyone needed to know. The replies came back within minutes. Confirmation from every major space weather monitoring facility on Earth. The numbers varied slightly due to instrumental differences, but the conclusion was identical. A solar event of unprecedented magnitude was heading directly for our planet. Dr. Amaris Pike from the North American Electric Reliability Corporation was the first external contact to call back. Her voice was tight with controlled panic. "Zephyr, please tell me your preliminary numbers are wrong. I wish I could, Amaris. We're looking at complete grid failure across North America. Transformers will be fried beyond repair. Recovery time measured in years, not months. Years." The word came out as barely a whisper. I stared at the plasma cloud expanding on my screen, a wall of charged particles racing toward Earth at 4 million miles per hour. "Amaris, you need to start shutdown procedures now. Every non-essential transformer, every satellite uplink, every piece of sensitive electronics needs to be disconnected and hardened. You have maybe 60 hours. 60 hours to harden the entire North American power grid?" Her laugh held no humor. "Zeph, that's physically impossible. We'd need months of preparation and equipment we don't have." Through the operations center windows, I watched the sun rise over Maryland. It looked so peaceful, so normal. A golden disk providing light and warmth, the foundation of all life on Earth. In 3 days, that same star was going to try to kill human civilization. I began typing my preliminary report, each keystroke feeling like a nail in our collective coffin. At the top of the document, I entered the classification we'd never used before. Space Weather Event Severity. Extinction Risk. The morning briefing was in 20 minutes. By then, people much more important than me would need to make decisions about how to break this news to 8 billion people who were about to discover that their technological civilization was far more fragile than they'd ever imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife, Sarah. "Working late again? Kids want to know if you'll make Emma's soccer game tonight." Tonight. As if tonight would ever come. As if soccer games and family dinners and everything normal would survive what was coming. I looked back at my screens, at the impossible numbers that meant everything was about to change. The magnetometer was still pegged beyond maximum range. The coronal mass ejection was still expanding outward like the fist of an angry god. And we had 72 hours to figure out how to survive the end of the world. Dr. Zephyr Vale, NASA Space Weather Prediction Center. Goddard Space Flight Center, Greenbelt, Maryland. March 15, 2025, 14:18 Greenwich Mean Time. 72 hours. That's all the time we had before the sun tried to kill our civilization. The emergency briefing had ended 20 minutes ago, leaving behind a conference room full of shell-shocked officials and the acrid smell of too much coffee consumed too quickly. Director Harrison had taken the preliminary report to Washington. The Secretary of Homeland Security was convening a crisis cabinet. The president would be briefed within the hour. All of it felt like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. "Zeph, you need to see this." Aurelia's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. She'd been running cascade failure models for the past 6 hours, feeding every variable we could think of into the power grid simulation software. I walked over to her workstation, noting the scattered energy drink cans and the slight tremor in her hands. The main display showed a map of North America with the electrical transmission network overlaid in thin blue lines. As I watched, sections of the grid began flashing red in a spreading pattern that looked disturbingly like a disease outbreak. "Walk me through it," I said, though I was already dreading what I'd hear. "Okay, so we start with the CME impact at T plus 72 hours. She clicked to advance the simulation. The initial geomagnetic disturbance induces ground currents in the transmission lines. The first transformers to fail are the high-voltage, extra-high-voltage systems, the big ones that are impossible to replace quickly. Red spread across the map like spilled blood. How long for initial failure? 17 minutes after impact. The Quebec grid goes first, they're most vulnerable due to geological conductivity. Then we get sympathetic failures as load redistributes. She advanced the simulation further. By T plus 2 hours, everything north of the Mason-Dixon line is dark. What about hardened systems? Military installations, emergency services. Aurelia's laugh was bitter. Military bases are connected to civilian grids for cost efficiency. Emergency services depend on cell towers that depend on the same infrastructure. Zeph, we're not just talking about power outages. We're talking about the complete collapse of technological civilization. My phone buzzed with another international confirmation. Dr. Nakamura from Tokyo. European models showing identical results. This is not survivable with current infrastructure. The implications were staggering. No power meant no fuel pumps, no water treatment, no food refrigeration, no medical equipment, no transportation, no communication. Modern life would simply stop. What's the casualty estimate? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Aurelia pulled up a different model, this one overlaying population density with infrastructure dependency. CDC ran some preliminary numbers based on the 03 Northeast blackout scaled up. Direct casualties from infrastructure failure, 2.1 million in the first week. Indirect casualties from medical equipment failure, transportation accidents, social breakdown. She paused, staring at the screen. Zeph, they're projecting 30 to 40% population loss in developed nations within the first year. 30 to 40%. In the United States alone, that was 100 million people. The secure line from NERC buzzed. Amaris Pike's face appeared on the video conference screen, looking like she'd aged 10 years since our morning call. Behind her, I could see the controlled chaos of the grid operations center. Dozens of technicians working frantically at computer terminals. Zephyr, we've got a problem. Well, another problem. Her voice was hoarse from hours of crisis coordination. We've identified 2,100 critical transformers that would need to be physically disconnected to have any chance of surviving the pulse. Most are in remote locations. Some are in other countries. How many can you actually disconnect in time, with every available crew working around the clock? Maybe 300. Maybe. She rubbed her eyes. And that's assuming we can get approval from every utility company, every state government, every regulatory body. Do you know how long it takes to get permission to shut down a major transformer under normal circumstances? Weeks, I said. Months sometimes. Environmental impact studies, economic impact assessments, backup power arrangements for hospitals and essential services. We don't have months, Zeph. We have 64 hours. Another call was coming in on the international line. Dr. Elizabeth Fry from the European Space Agency's Space Weather Coordination Center in Brussels. Her normally composed demeanor was cracking. Zephyr, I have updates from our partners. Bad news across the board. She was speaking too quickly, the words tumbling over each other. The Russians have lost 2 navigation satellites already from the precursor radiation. The Chinese are reporting anomalies in their power grid management systems. And we just received confirmation from the Indian Space Research Organization. Their communication satellites are experiencing significant degradation. Already, the main CME hasn't even. The X-ray and proton radiation is arriving now. It's already causing failures. Elizabeth's image flickered as if her own connection was struggling. Zephyr, the airlines are grounding flights. Every GPS satellite in orbit is at risk. Even if we survive the main event, we're looking at years to rebuild the satellite constellation. The screens around me displayed the creeping advance of cosmic destruction. Aurora activity was already visible in northern Canada, 12 hours ahead of schedule. Radio blackouts were spreading across the polar regions. The International Space Station had moved to emergency power and was preparing for possible evacuation. I thought about Sarah's text that morning. Emma's soccer game. The normalcy of family life that was about to be shattered along with everything else. Had I already worked my last normal day? Had my daughter played her last game on a field with electric lights and digital scoreboards? Aurelia, I said quietly, what's the recovery timeline? Assuming we survive the initial impact. She pulled up yet another model, this one showing infrastructure rebuilding scenarios. Best case, assuming we can maintain some manufacturing capability and international cooperation, 5 to 7 years for basic grid restoration in major metropolitan areas. Rural areas, maybe 15 to 20 years. And worst case, she met my eyes. Worst case, we never recover. The specialized manufacturing for power grid components requires a functioning electrical grid. It's a circular dependency. Break the circle and modern civilization might be permanently broken. My secure phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I'd never seen before, but the area code was 202. Washington, D.C. Dr. Vale? This is Rebecca Martinez, Deputy Director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I need to know, is there any possibility your team has made an error in assessment? The question I'd been dreading. The one that would determine whether I was remembered as the man who predicted the end of the world or the man who caused unnecessary panic. Ma'am, we've had confirmation from 14 international space weather monitoring stations. The satellite data is unambiguous. The ground-based magnetometer readings are consistent across 3 continents. This is not an error. And there's no chance the impact will be less severe than projected? I looked at the plasma cloud on my screen, a wall of charged particles 8 million miles wide, racing toward Earth at unprecedented velocity. Ma'am, our models might be wrong. They might be too conservative. This could be worse than we're projecting. Silence on the line. Then, Dr. Vale, the president is preparing to address the nation in 6 hours. What do I tell him to say? What do you tell 8 billion people that they have 3 days to prepare for the end of their technological civilization? How do you explain that all the marvels of modern life, the internet, the power grid, the GPS satellites, the cell phones, the computerized cars, the digital banking systems, the fly-by-wire aircraft, all of it was about to be wiped out by a storm from the sun? Tell him to tell the truth, I said. Tell him to tell people to prepare for the worst blackout in human history. Tell him to tell them it might last for years. And tell him to tell them that the sun isn't finished with us yet. Through the operations center windows, the late afternoon sun was setting over Maryland. Beautiful, peaceful, deceptive. In 64 hours, that same sun was going to teach humanity a lesson about the fragility of technological civilization. Those who survived the lesson might be wise enough to build something more resilient. Those who didn't survive wouldn't need to worry about it. Hour 16, the Carrington Connection. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Emergency Operations Log, Dr. Zephyr Vale, Space Weather Coordinator. September 15th, 2024, 4:47 Greenwich Mean Time. Status: Condition red solar Killshot event confirmed. The coffee tastes like metal now. Everything does. Even the recycled air in the bunker has this sharp, electric tang that makes my teeth ache. Aurelia says it's psychosomatic stress response to impossible data. But the magnetometer readings don't lie, and neither do the slowly dying satellites feeding us their final transmissions. 16 hours since initial detection. The coronal mass ejection is moving at 2,400 kilometers per second, faster than anything in our models. I've been digging through historical records trying to find anything, that might tell us what we're facing. The Carrington event of 1859 keeps coming up in every search. Richard Carrington, amateur astronomer, sketching sunspots from his private observatory when he witnessed the largest solar flare in recorded history. Telegraph systems worldwide failed. Wires sparked and caught fire. Operators received electric shocks. In some places, the aurora was so bright people could read newspapers by its light. But here's what the textbooks don't emphasize. The Carrington event registered as an X-45 class flare. Our current event? X-287 and climbing. I called Dr. Sarah Chun at the National Academy of Sciences. She specializes in paleomagnetism, reading Earth's magnetic history from rock formations. What she told me made my hands shake. Zephyr, I've been tracking magnetic pole movement for 20 years. We're not just dealing with a solar storm. We're in the middle of a geomagnetic reversal. The magnetic field protecting us? It's at 20% of normal strength and dropping. 20%. The Carrington event hit us when our magnetic field was at full strength. This solar killshot is hitting us while our planetary shields are essentially down. I pulled up the Quebec blackout of 1989. Much smaller solar event, barely X-15, but it knocked out power to 6 million people for 9 hours. The Hydro-Quebec power grid suffered catastrophic failure when protective relays tripped in sequence, each failure triggering the next like dominoes falling in slow motion. Amaris Pike from the Eastern Interconnection Grid Operations finally returned my calls. Her voice was hollow, professional composure cracking around the edges. Dr. Vale, I've been running simulations for the past 8 hours. Our transformers aren't designed for this level of electromagnetic interference. We're talking about induced currents 20 times higher than our equipment can handle. When those transformers blow, they don't just shut down, they literally melt. And we don't have spares for even a fraction of the critical infrastructure. How long for replacement? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Custom transformers for major substations? 18 months minimum. That's assuming the manufacturing facilities survive the initial event. Most of those are overseas, completely dependent on their own electrical grids. The implications hit like ice water. This isn't a power outage. It's the end of electrical civilization, possibly for years. I've been trying to reach Dr. Elizabeth Hartmann at the Max Planck Institute. She published the definitive work on solar-terrestrial interactions in 2019. The international phone lines are becoming unreliable, conversations cutting out mid-sentence, static that sounds almost alive. When I finally got through, her English was strained with exhaustion. Zephyr, we are seeing the same data here, but there is something else. I have been analyzing the spectrum of this event. The electromagnetic signature matches theoretical models for, a magnetic field collapse scenario. You mean the reversal? No. Worse. What if this solar event is so powerful it doesn't just interact with our weakened magnetic field? What if it accelerates the collapse? Forces a rapid flip instead of the gradual process we expected. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. If the magnetic field collapses completely, even temporarily, we lose all protection from cosmic radiation. The aurora would be the least of our problems. I requested access to the geological survey data from the Loschamp event, the last rapid magnetic reversal about 42,000 years ago. The timing correlates with massive extinction events, climate disruption, and the disappearance of Neanderthal populations. But 42,000 years ago, there were no power grids to fail, no satellites to fry, no civilization dependent on electromagnetic technology. The hardening efforts are pathetic. I watched engineers yesterday trying to wrap critical equipment in copper mesh, install surge protectors rated for normal lightning strikes. It's like trying to stop a tsunami with sandbags. The military's EMP-hardened facilities might survive, but they represent maybe 0.01% of our critical infrastructure. Indigo Strix from Emergency Alert System Coordination sent an encrypted message. The government is preparing for temporary infrastructure disruption and possible communication difficulties. They're telling the public to prepare for severe weather, not the collapse of technological civilization. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Public panic is building despite the careful messaging. Financial markets opened down 40% this morning. People are emptying grocery stores, gas stations, banks. They can sense something catastrophic approaching even if they don't understand the technical details. I found something else in the historical records. Tree ring data from 774 CE shows evidence of a massive cosmic ray event, possibly a solar killshot that hit when human civilization was much simpler. The Chinese recorded red crosses in the sky and crop failures across the northern hemisphere. But they survived because they didn't depend on electricity for everything from water pumps to food refrigeration to medical equipment. We do. Aurelia found me staring at the geological timeline charts around 2 o'clock. She set down 2 cups of that metallic coffee and sat beside me in the blue glow of the emergency monitors. "How bad?" she asked quietly. I showed her the calculations, energy levels, infrastructure vulnerability, recovery timelines. She studied the numbers for a long time, her face growing paler in the monitor light. "My daughter lives in Boston," she said finally. "High-rise apartment, 20th floor." I nodded. No elevators, no water pumps, no heat, no communication. "I need to make some calls," she whispered, standing up. "Aurelia, I know. The phones probably won't work much longer." She was right. As I write this, the satellite phone system is showing increasing error rates. GPS signals are becoming unreliable. The ionosphere is already beginning to distort from the approaching electromagnetic storm. In 6 hours, amateur radio operators around the world will conduct the first of what may be our last coordinated communication tests. After that, we'll be reduced to line-of-sight radio, maybe some shortwave if we're lucky. I keep thinking about those telegraph operators in 1859, watching sparks fly from their equipment, not understanding they were witnessing the end of their communication age. They rebuilt quickly because their technology was simple. Ours isn't. The sun is trying to teach us a lesson about dependency. In 56 hours, we'll find out if we're capable of learning it. Next communication window, 6 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time via hardened landline. Backup protocol, ham radio frequency 14.205 MHz. If all else fails, manual documentation continues. Dr. Zephyr Vale, Space Weather Coordinator, NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. When you stare into the sun, sometimes it stares back. Hour 24, when preparation becomes documentation. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Emergency Operations Log, Dr. Zephyr Vale, Space Weather Coordinator. September 15th, 2024, 12:47 Greenwich Mean Time. Status: condition red, mitigation efforts failing. The hardening teams gave up at dawn. I watched from the observation deck as the last truck pulled away from Transformer Station 7. Emergency lights flashing uselessly in the gray morning light. 12 hours of frantic work. Wrapping critical equipment in copper mesh. Installing surge arresters. Rerouting power through supposedly protected circuits. All of it useless against what's coming. Chief Engineer Martinez climbed the stairs to find me. Hard hat still on. Tool belt jangling with each step. His face had that hollow look I've been seeing more often. The expression of someone who's realized their expertise is worthless. "Dr. Vale, we need to talk." He spread the schematics across the observation table, pointing to red X marks scattered like bullet holes across the diagrams. These transformers were designed for induced currents up to 300 amps per phase. We're looking at potential surges of 4,000 amps or higher. The copper mesh might reduce that by 20% if we're lucky. The surge arresters will blow instantly. They're meant for lightning strikes, not electromagnetic tsunamis. I nodded, making notes in my logbook. Everything is documentation now. Someone needs to record why we failed, assuming anyone survives to read it. What about the underground cables? Martinez laughed bitterly. Underground makes it worse. Longer conductor runs, more surface area for electromagnetic induction. The Manhattan subway system is going to turn into the world's largest electric coil. The morning briefing was a catalog of inadequacy. Representatives from power companies across the eastern seaboard attended via encrypted video link. The connections already showing interference artifacts, digital snow creeping around the edges of their faces. Amaris Pike looked exhausted, speaking from what appeared to be a basement control room. Behind her, technicians moved with the focused urgency of people trying to prevent the inevitable. "We've implemented emergency load shedding across the grid," she reported. "Non-essential systems offline, critical infrastructure on isolated circuits with maximum protection we can provide. But I need to be clear, we're not preventing failure. We're just trying to control how catastrophically we fail." The financial markets had opened for exactly 17 minutes before emergency trading halts kicked in. Dow Jones down 60% at close. Nasdaq simply stopped updating. The computers couldn't process the volume of sell orders fast enough. I watched the Reuters feed until the satellite uplink started breaking apart. Words fragmenting mid-sentence like reality itself was developing a stutter. Dr. Elizabeth Hartmann called from Germany at 8:30. The connection was worse than yesterday. Delays, echoes, bursts of static that sounded almost musical. Zephyr, European Space Agency, confirms magnetosphere compression beginning. Solar wind pressure increasing exponentially. We are seeing aurora at latitudes never recorded. Hamburg, Prague, even northern Italy. How long until main impact? Static consumed her response for nearly 30 seconds. When her voice returned, it was fragmented. Trajectory models, 48 hours? God help us all. The line went dead. When I tried calling back, the international circuits were down. Aurelia hasn't slept. I found her in Communications Center B, surrounded by printouts and empty coffee cups, coordinating with NOAA facilities worldwide while we still can. She's been trying to reach her daughter in Boston for 6 hours. The cellular networks are becoming increasingly unreliable, calls dropping mid-conversation, text messages taking hours to deliver, data connections timing out. The ionosphere is already distorting, she explained, not looking up from her screens. Radio propagation is getting weird. Long-distance communications are going to fail completely once the main event hits. She finally looked at me, and I saw something that scared me more than all the technical data. Resignation. Aurelia has worked in emergency management for 20 years. She's coordinated responses to hurricanes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks. I've never seen her look defeated. I got through to Sarah, my daughter, for about 2 minutes around 6 o'clock. Told her to fill every container with water, get cash from ATMs while they're still working, buy canned food and batteries. She thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Did you tell her that civilization is about to end? That her 21st century life is going to become a 19th century struggle for survival? No, Zephyr. I told her to be prepared for power outages. I understand the impulse. How do you explain to someone that their normal life is about to cease existing? That the infrastructure they've never thought about, the invisible systems that make modern life possible, are about to be destroyed by an invisible force from space? The amateur radio networks have been buzzing with increasingly desperate chatter. Ham radio operators worldwide are reporting the same pattern. Normal communication conditions degrading hour by hour, conversations interrupted by bursts of static, distant stations fading in and out like voices from another dimension. I monitored the 20-meter band this morning. Operators in Japan were describing aurora visible from Tokyo. Stations in Australia reported power grid fluctuations and satellite TV disruptions. A voice from somewhere in Eastern Europe, heavily accented, kept repeating latitude and longitude coordinates, the location of something significant, though the static made it impossible to understand what. The most chilling transmission came from a research station in Antarctica. The operator's voice was professionally calm, but his words were terrifying. Magnetic field readings are off the charts. The compass is spinning. We're seeing aurora directly overhead. That's impossible at this latitude. Something fundamental is changing. Then his signal vanished into white noise. President's science advisors called an emergency briefing at 10 o'clock. Attended via secure video from the White House Situation Room, though the connection kept pixelating and freezing. They wanted to know about recovery timelines and infrastructure resilience factors. I gave them the numbers. 18 months minimum for major transformer replacement, assuming manufacturing facilities survive. 5 to 10 years for complete grid reconstruction. Communication networks dependent on satellite infrastructure. Potentially decades for full restoration. The silence on the video call stretched for nearly a minute. Finally, someone asked about continuity of government protocols. The government that exists in 48 hours won't be the same one sitting in that room, I told them. You'll be governing a pre-electrical society with post-electrical problems. The video call ended abruptly. Nyla Chase from Johns Hopkins Hospital managed to get through on the emergency medical network around 11:30. She's been coordinating disaster preparedness for the regional medical system, and her report was clinical in its horror. We're looking at the simultaneous failure of every electrically dependent medical system in the country. Ventilators, dialysis machines, ICU monitors, refrigerated medications, digital patient records. We have maybe 12 hours of backup generator fuel for critical cases. After that, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. What's your casualty estimate? I asked. For the immediate electromagnetic event? Maybe a few thousand from accidents, pacemaker failures, medication dependency. But the infrastructure collapse? Conservative estimate, 40% population loss within 6 months. Optimistic estimate, 20%. The numbers were abstractions until I thought about Aurelia's daughter. About Dr. Hartmann's family in Germany. About the millions of people going about their normal Thursday morning, completely unaware that their world was about to end. The final satellite weather update came through at 12:15. The coronal mass ejection has maintained coherence better than any solar event on record. Instead of dispersing across space, it's remained focused like a plasma rifle shot aimed directly at Earth. Impact in 48 hours, 17 minutes. I'm writing this by hand now. The digital systems are showing increasing error rates, files corrupting spontaneously, timestamps jumping randomly. My laptop just displayed tomorrow's date for 5 minutes before resetting to 1904. The hardening failed. The preparation failed. We're not preventing a disaster anymore, we're documenting the end of an era. In 2 days, the sun is going to remind humanity that all our technology, all our civilization, all our confidence in progress, depends on the continued cooperation of forces completely beyond our control. The lesson begins in 48 hours. I pray someone survives to learn from it. Final secure communication window, 1800 hours Greenwich Mean Time. Backup protocols activating automatically. After that, welcome to the 19th century. Dr. Zephyr Vale, Space Weather Coordinator. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. The sun doesn't care about our plans. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center Emergency Log. Dr. Zephyr Vale, Space Weather Prediction Coordinator. Date: March 15, 2025. Time: 14:15 Greenwich Mean Time. The magnetosphere began screaming at 14:32 Greenwich Mean Time. I've been monitoring space weather for 12 years. I've seen X-class flares that knocked out satellites, coronal mass ejections that triggered continental auroras, geomagnetic storms that made compasses spin like carnival rides. Nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for watching our planet's magnetic shield get torn apart in real time. The first indicator was the sudden spike in our ground-based magnetometer array. The needles didn't just jump, they slammed against the maximum readings and stayed there. Dr. Chun looked up from her workstation, confusion creasing her face. Zephyr, are we getting interference from the construction next door? I wish it had been that simple. Negative. Check the satellite feeds. The GOES 18 data stream showed what I'd been dreading for 48 hours. A wall of charged particles moving at 1,500 kilometers per second directly toward Earth. The coronal mass ejection had arrived exactly when our models predicted, but the sheer magnitude still caught me off guard. The plasma density readings were 3 times higher than our worst-case scenarios. Jesus Christ, Chun whispered. The flux rope it's massive. The interplanetary magnetic field had reversed completely. South-pointing, sustained, feeding directly into our planet's magnetic field lines like a key turning in a lock. Every space weather forecaster knows this configuration. It's the nightmare scenario we train for but hope never to see. I grabbed the red phone. Director Martinez answered before the first ring. Talk to me, Vale. Sir, we have magnetic reconnection occurring at the dayside magnetopause. The solar wind is directly coupling with Earth's magnetosphere. We're looking at a KP9 event minimum. English, Doctor. The Killshot is here, sir. Impact confirmed at 1432. We have maybe 20 minutes before the first power systems start failing. The line went quiet except for keyboard clicks. Martinez was probably pulling up the cascade failure models we'd been refining all week. Models that showed modern civilization grinding to a halt in less than an hour. How bad? I looked at the real-time Aurora cameras. The northern lights were visible from Michigan. In broad daylight, the electromagnetic storm was so intense that the ionosphere itself was glowing like a neon sign. Sir, the Aurora Oval has expanded to 30 degrees magnetic latitude. We're seeing optical emissions down to Tennessee. The induced ground currents are going to be... The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in immediately, bathing the operations center in red light. But the satellite feeds were gone. One by one, our primary data sources winked out. GOES 18, GOES 16, the Discover Solar Wind Monitor. $12 billion worth of space-based infrastructure dying in minutes. Goddard, this is Noah Boulder. We've lost primary power and our backup is fluctuating. Are you seeing this? I keyed the radio. Boulder, Goddard confirms. We're on emergency power. Satellite constellation is failing systematically. Copy that. We're showing induced currents of over 300 amperes per kilometer in the Alaska pipeline. The Canadians report transformer explosions across Quebec. This is bigger than '89, bigger than 1989. The Quebec blackout had been caused by a moderate geomagnetic storm. This was like comparing a firecracker to a nuclear bomb. My phone buzzed. A text from Aurelia at the Power Grid Coordination Center. Zephyr cascading failures across Northeast. Losing transformers faster than we can isolate them. This is what you warned us about. I tried calling her back. Line dead. The emergency radio crackled with increasingly desperate reports. Air traffic control systems failing. GPS satellites losing signal lock. Cell towers going dark across the eastern seaboard. Each failure triggering 3 more as interconnected systems collapsed like dominoes. Dr. Vale. Chen's voice was tight with fear. The geomagnetic indices, they're off the scale. Literally. Our instruments can't measure what's happening. I walked to the window. The sky to the north was wrong. A sickly green glow where there should have been blue. Farther north, pillars of red and purple light stretched from horizon to zenith. The aurora borealis had descended to Maryland. My laptop chimed with an automated alert from the power grid monitoring system. Critical. Transformer differential protection activated at 847 substations. System stability compromised. Recommend immediate load shedding. Too late. The recommendations were already obsolete. Attention all personnel. Director Martinez's voice echoed through the facility's PA system. We are implementing Crisis Protocol 7. All critical data is to be backed up to hardened storage immediately. This is not a drill. Crisis Protocol 7. I'd helped write those procedures, but I never thought I'd hear them announced. It meant we'd officially acknowledged that the technological infrastructure of the United States was failing in real time. The radio sparked to life with a transmission from Indigo Strix at the Emergency Alert System headquarters. All stations? All stations. This is EAS National. We are losing coordination with regional centers. Backup power systems are experiencing electromagnetic interference. If you can hear this, begin local alert procedures immediately. Static consumed the frequency. I pulled out my personal phone to try reaching my sister in Baltimore. No signal. The cell towers were either without power or overwhelmed by millions of people trying to make the same call. Chun was frantically copying data to our EMP-hardened drives when the building's fire alarm started wailing. Not the electronic system, the old mechanical backup that only activated when the primary failed. Through the window, I could see smoke rising from the direction of the Beltway. Cars were stopped in the middle of the highway, their electronic systems fried by the induced electromagnetic pulses. Zephyr. Chen's voice was barely audible over the alarms. The backup generators just failed. We've got maybe 4 hours of battery power left. 4 hours. After that, even our emergency documentation efforts would cease. The most advanced space weather monitoring facility in the world would go dark, just like everything else. I looked at the paper logbook on my desk, the old-fashioned record-keeping we'd maintained out of bureaucratic habit. It might be the only permanent record of humanity's first encounter with a true solar killshot. At 14:32 Greenwich Mean Time on March 15, 2025, the sun had reached across 93 million miles of space and reminded us that for all our technology, all our sophistication, we were still just clever apes living on a rock at the mercy of forces beyond our comprehension. The modern world had 17 minutes left to live. Battery level, 87%. Emergency power remaining, 3 hours, 47 minutes. Satellite network, offline. Primary communications, failed. Last known grid status, cascading failure in progress. Personal note, if someone finds this record, know that we saw it coming. We tried to prepare, but you can't prepare for the end of electricity itself. May whoever rebuilds do better than we did. ZV. Hour 60. Grid Dark Protocol. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center Emergency Log. Dr. Zephyr Vale Manual Entry. Date, March 16, 2025. Time, 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. Estimated clock stopped. Written by hand, emergency lighting only. 12 hours without power. The silence is the worst part. I'm writing this by the light of a chemical glow stick, the kind we keep in earthquake kits. The emergency batteries died at 23:47 last night. I know because I was staring at the digital clock when it went dark. That was the last electronic timepiece I've seen working. Outside, the world has gone medieval. No streetlights, no traffic signals, no hum of air conditioning or electronic devices. The only sounds are distant sirens, the mechanical kind that fire trucks carry, and the occasional crack of tree branches falling on power lines that will never carry electricity again. Dr. Chun left at dawn to check on her elderly mother in Silver Spring. I don't expect to see her again. The roads are impassable, not from debris, but from the thousands of cars that simply stopped working when the electromagnetic pulse fried their engine management systems. Highway 95 looks like the world's largest parking lot. I've been maintaining radio contact with other facilities using the hand-crank emergency radio from our disaster supplies. The reports are uniformly catastrophic. 6:30, contact with NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center. Boulder. Zephyr, this is Jim Kowalski. We've got maybe 6 hours of generator fuel left. The electromagnetic interference is still too strong for most electronics. Even our hardened equipment is acting up. Are you maintaining any satellite contact? Negative, Jim. Complete constellation failure. I'm tracking approximately 400 pieces of new space debris. The satellites didn't just lose power, Some of them physically broke apart from induced currents. Jesus! What about ground-based monitoring? Manual readings only. I've got a 1970s vintage magnetometer that's still functional. The magnetic field is still severely disturbed. We're looking at KP indices that don't exist on the standard scale. 7:15, attempted contact with Wallops Flight Facility. Static only. Either their equipment failed or they've abandoned the facility. 7:30, brief contact with an amateur radio operator in Richmond. This is KC for whatever. I can't remember my call sign right now. Is anyone coordinating emergency services? We've got a hospital here that's been without power for 14 hours. Their backup generators failed from electromagnetic interference. People are dying. I had no answer for him. The scope of the catastrophe is becoming clear through these scattered radio reports. This isn't just a power outage. It's the collapse of everything that makes modern civilization function. Water systems, electric pumps offline. Water pressure failing across metropolitan areas. Treatment plants shut down. Backup generators damaged by electromagnetic effects. Transportation. Not just cars, trains, planes, ships. Anything with electronic controls. The Port of Baltimore reported that none of their cargo handling equipment functions. Dulles Airport is completely dark. Communications. Cell towers dead. Internet infrastructure offline. Even landline phones require electronic switching systems that failed. Ham radio is the only reliable long-distance communication, and most people don't know how to use it. Medical. This is the horror that keeps me awake. Hospitals on backup power for less than 3 days under normal circumstances. But their generators weren't designed to handle electromagnetic interference. Life support systems, ventilators, dialysis machines, all failing simultaneously. At 9 o'clock, I made contact with someone who identified herself as Nyla Chase from Baltimore General Hospital. This is Dr. Chase broadcasting on emergency frequency. We lost primary power at 14:35 yesterday. Backup generators ran for 6 hours before electromagnetic interference caused control system failures. We've had 17 deaths from life support failure. No ambulances can reach us. They're all dead on the roads. If anyone can hear this, we need manual medical equipment. Anything that doesn't require electricity and fuel. We're burning furniture to sterilize instruments. Her voice was steady, professional, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath. I gave her what information I could about expected duration, that the geomagnetic storm might last for days, but we both knew it didn't matter. The infrastructure damage was permanent. 10:30, last confirmed contact with operational power grid. Goddard, this is Amaris Pike at PJM Grid Operations. We're attempting manual restart procedures on the 500 kilovolt transmission system. Most of our large transformers have suffered catastrophic failure. The induced ground currents were... We've never seen anything like it. I'm reading damage reports from over 300 substations. Amaris, what's your restart timeline? Honestly, years. The replacement transformers we need are manufactured overseas with lead times measured in months under normal circumstances. And the manufacturing facilities that make them probably don't have power either. Are you maintaining coordination with other grid operators? We lost contact with ERCOT 12 hours ago. ISO New England went dark at 1500 hours yesterday. Zephyr, I don't think anyone's coordinating anything anymore. We're on our own. That was my last contact with the power grid. I've been trying to raise Amaris every hour since then. Nothing but static. The temperature in the operations center has dropped to 52 degrees. Without climate control, the building is slowly equalizing with the outside air. I've moved all the paper logs to the central archive room, which has the best insulation. Food situation. The facility cafeteria has supplies for maybe 3 days, but without refrigeration, most of it will spoil. I'm rationing what I can preserve at room temperature. The water fountains still work because the building has gravity-fed tanks, but those will empty soon without electric pumps to refill them. I made a difficult decision this morning. I'm abandoning real-time monitoring and focusing on documentation. Future generations need to understand what happened here. If there are future generations, evidence of social breakdown. Through binoculars from the roof, I can see smoke rising from at least 6 locations in the direction of Washington, D.C. Not the controlled smoke from fireplaces or generators, but the thick black smoke of burning buildings. Without fire departments able to respond quickly, small fires become major disasters. The parking lot of the shopping center across the highway has been stripped bare. People are taking everything they can carry: food, batteries, anything useful. It's not looting in the criminal sense. It's survival behavior when the systems that deliver necessities have failed. A group of families has set up camp in Greenbelt Park, visible from the facility's east windows. They've built fires and appear to be organizing some kind of temporary community. Smart. Urban areas will become uninhabitable within days without water and sanitation systems. Personal status. I keep trying to reach my sister Rachel in Baltimore. The last text I received from her, before the phones died, was, "Lost power. David's insulin needs refrigeration. Going to Mom's house. Mom's house has a well and a wood stove. If they made it there, they might survive. If they got trapped in the city when the cars died, I can't think about that now. I have work to do." Scientific observations. The aurora is still visible during daylight hours. A green glow on the northern horizon that shouldn't exist. The Earth's magnetic field is still severely disturbed. My mechanical compass spins randomly, unable to find magnetic north. Weather patterns are already changing. Without satellite monitoring and computer models, I can only make basic observations, but the jet stream appears to be shifting. Electromagnetic heating of the upper atmosphere during the storm may have disrupted normal circulation patterns. The most unsettling observation: wildlife behavior. Birds aren't flying in normal patterns. Many appear disoriented, possibly because they navigate using magnetic fields that are currently chaotic. I saw a flock of geese flying south yesterday in March when they should be flying north. Even the insects are acting strangely. Bees from the facility's research hives are clustering around the building instead of foraging. They may be as lost as we are. Resource assessment. Hand crank radio, functional. Mechanical timepieces, 2 wind-up watches still working. Paper supplies, sufficient for several months of documentation. Food, 4 to 5 days of non-perishable items. Water, 2 to 3 days from building tanks. Fuel, none. All generators failed from electromagnetic interference. Transportation, none. Facility vehicles all electronic. Communication, ham radio only. Decision point: I could leave the facility, try to walk home to find my family. It's 18 miles through suburban areas that are probably in chaos. Or I can stay here and continue documenting the collapse of technological civilization. I'm staying. Someone needs to record what we learned, what we did wrong, and what whoever comes after us should do differently. The paper logs I'm creating may be the only detailed scientific record of humanity's first encounter with a true electromagnetic apocalypse. If my family survived, they'll understand. If they didn't, then my work here is all I can offer their memory. Manual time check, 14:30, solar noon estimated by shadow measurement. Facility status, abandoned except for single observer. Regional power grid, total failure confirmed. Electromagnetic storm level, extreme, continuing. Estimated regional casualties, unknown but massive. The silence is getting louder. Next radio check, 1500 hours. If I don't make contact with another facility today, I may be the last scientific observer still documenting this event. The weight of that responsibility is becoming unbearable. Hour 68 post-impact. Personal log, Dr. Zephyr Vale. Goddard Space Flight Center Emergency Operations. Power source, hand crank generator, 15 minutes remaining charge. Date, Paper calendar shows day 3, electronic clocks all stopped. The silence is what breaks you first. Not the screaming from the cities. That stopped yesterday when the last emergency broadcasts went dark. Not the static from dead satellites or the phantom hum of electrical systems that will never wake up again. It's the absolute, suffocating silence where 68 hours ago there was the constant whisper of our technological heartbeat. I've been documenting system failures for 3 days. Temperature readings, magnetic field fluctuations, equipment degradation timelines. All the data points that will matter to whoever finds these logs in 50 years when they're trying to piece together what happened to our civilization. But right now, sitting in what used to be the most advanced space weather monitoring facility on Earth, I can't pretend this is just another research project. The hand crank radio finally picked up Nyla's voice this morning. Dr. Nyla Chase, St. Mary's Hospital Emergency Coordinator. We'd worked together on medical equipment hardening protocols 2 years ago, theoretical exercises that seemed almost paranoid at the time. Her voice came through the static like a ghost transmission from another world. This is St. Mary's Hospital, any station, any station. We've lost 43 patients in the last 12 hours. Dialysis machines, ventilators, cardiac monitors, everything electronic is dead or dying. The backup generators lasted 36 hours before the electromagnetic interference fried the control systems. We're performing surgery by candlelight. Candlelight, Zephyr. Like we're living in the 19th century. I could hear the exhaustion in her voice, the way it cracked when she said the numbers. 43 people. That's just one hospital. There are thousands of hospitals across the grid failure zone, all with their own lists of names that will never go home. The worst part? She apologized. She actually apologized to me, as if somehow the solar storm was my fault because I hadn't predicted it would be this catastrophic. As if 20 years of space weather research should have made me a prophet instead of just another person watching the world end in real time. Zephyr, we did everything we could with the protocols. The hardening, the backup systems, the emergency procedures. None of it mattered. The scale. We never imagined the scale. Neither did I, Nyla. Neither did any of us. I lost contact with her 3 hours later. The radio just went to static mid-sentence while she was describing their water situation. The electric pumps that supply the hospital's water pressure died with everything else. They're collecting rainwater in bedpans and surgical trays. I keep trying to raise her signal, cranking the radio until my arms ache. But there's nothing. Just the endless static that's become the soundtrack to the end of everything we built. Amorous Pike. Jesus Christ, Amorous. The report came through the ham radio network at 0400 this morning. Some volunteer operator in Virginia, voice shaking as he read from handwritten notes passed along through a chain of survivors with working radios. Power Systems Coordinator Amorous Pike found deceased at Dominion Energy's Surrey Power Station. Apparent electrocution during manual restart attempt of Unit 2. Body discovered by emergency response team conducting facility sweep. Manual restart attempt. That sounds like Amorous, brilliant, stubborn, absolutely convinced she could solve any engineering problem through sheer force of will and technical expertise. She must have thought she could bypass the fried control systems, get at least one generator back online, maybe save a slice of the grid, keep the lights on for a few more neighborhoods, a few more hospitals, a few more lives. Instead, the residual electromagnetic field in the generator housing killed her. Probably instantly, according to the radio operator. Small mercy. I should have seen it coming. Should have known she'd try something that dangerous. During our last communication 48 hours ago, she was already talking about manual overrides and hardwired bypasses. The desperation in her voice when she described the cascade failures spreading across the entire Eastern interconnection. We're losing everything, Zephyr. Everything. 20 years I've worked on this grid, and I'm watching it die section by section. There has to be something we can do. Some way to restart even a small portion. I told her to wait. Wait for the electromagnetic interference to subside. Wait for clearer technical guidance. Wait for organized recovery efforts. Wait for safety. She never was good at waiting. The radio network says they buried her yesterday in the facility's equipment yard, wrapped in electrical insulation material because there were no coffins available. Her parents live in California. They'll probably never know what happened to their daughter. The long-distance communication networks won't be restored for months, maybe years. I keep thinking about the last thing she said to me. If this doesn't work, at least tell them we tried. I'm telling them, Amaris. I'm writing it all down. Aurelia Marsh. My colleague, my friend, my reality check for the last 8 years of solar monitoring work. Always the skeptic, always pushing back against worst-case scenarios, always making sure we didn't oversell the dangers to administrators who preferred optimistic projections. She was right to be skeptical. Our worst-case scenarios weren't worst-case enough. The evacuation reports from DC are fragmentary, scattered across multiple ham radio frequencies like pieces of a shattered mirror. Traffic gridlock when the electronic systems failed. Cars dead in the streets, traffic lights dark, GPS navigation systems blank. Metro systems stopped mid-route with thousands of passengers trapped underground in powerless trains. Aurelia lived in Arlington, 12 miles from Goddard. In normal times, that's a 20-minute drive. In the chaos of a complete infrastructure collapse, with every electronic system dead and emergency services overwhelmed, 12 miles might as well be 1,200. The last confirmed sighting came from a Virginia State Police officer using a hand crank radio. Civilian female, approximately 45 years old, assisting with evacuation coordination at the Rosslyn Metro Station. Last seen directing pedestrian traffic toward Memorial Bridge approximately 18 hours ago. That sounds like Aurelia. Even in the middle of a civilization-ending disaster, she'd be trying to help organize the response, using her analytical mind to solve immediate problems while the world burned around her. But 18 hours ago was before the water pressure failed completely in Arlington, before the emergency services ran out of fuel for their vehicles, before the crowds turned desperate and dangerous as the reality set in that help wasn't coming. I've been monitoring every frequency, every amateur radio check-in, every emergency coordination network still operating. No word, no sign, just thousands of voices calling out names of missing people into the static, hoping for impossible answers. Indigo Strix, the emergency alert system coordinator who'd been working around the clock to keep some form of public communication active as the networks died. Her broadcasts had become a lifeline for survivors, the calm professional voice cutting through the chaos with essential information. Where to find clean water, which roads were still passable, how to signal for help. I'd been monitoring her frequency, using her updates to piece together the broader scope of the collapse. Her voice was the closest thing to normal in a world gone completely insane. Her final broadcast came at 13:47 yesterday. This is Emergency Alert System Coordinator Indigo Strix broadcasting on 162.550 MHz. Current status: widespread power grid failure continues across all monitored regions. Transportation networks remain non-functional. Emergency services operating at severely reduced capacity. Water treatment facilities. Then nothing. Dead air. Complete silence on a frequency that had been active for 72 straight hours. The emergency broadcast facility in West Virginia went dark, according to scattered reports. Equipment failure, structural damage, or something worse, nobody knows. The backup sites aren't responding either. The entire emergency communication network that was supposed to coordinate disaster response just stopped. Indigo's voice had been professional to the end, but I could hear the exhaustion creeping in during her last few broadcasts. The pauses getting longer, the careful pronunciation starting to slip. She'd been awake for 3 days straight, manually operating equipment that was never designed to function without computerized support systems. Her last words were cut off mid-sentence. Water treatment facilities. What was she trying to tell us? That they'd failed completely? That contamination was spreading? That we had hours, not days, before the public health situation became catastrophic? I'll never know. None of us will. The mathematics of disaster are relentless. Each name represents dozens of others I'll never learn. Each personal loss multiplies across thousands of families, millions of broken connections, entire communities scattered to the wind. My phone has been dead for 68 hours. The landlines went down with the switching stations. Even if I could somehow make contact, what would I say to my sister in Chicago? To my parents in Phoenix? To my ex-wife in Seattle? The sun killed our civilization and I documented the whole thing? Your expertise in predicting space weather was completely useless when it actually mattered? Everyone I worked with is dead or missing, and you're probably next? The isolation is becoming psychologically unbearable. For 20 years, I've been connected to a global network of scientists, researchers, emergency coordinators, policymakers. Constant communication, instant access to data, collaborative analysis of every solar event and geomagnetic disturbance. Now I'm sitting alone in a dark room, writing by candlelight, talking to a hand-crank radio that mostly talks back with static. The professional facade is cracking. 3 days ago, I was Dr. Zephyr Vale, NASA Space Weather Prediction Coordinator, expert consultant to the Department of Homeland Security, author of 37 peer-reviewed papers on coronal mass ejection impacts. Today, I'm just another survivor with a working radio and too much knowledge about exactly how fucked we all are. The worst part isn't the personal losses, devastating as they are. The worst part is understanding the timeline. This isn't a disaster we'll recover from in weeks or months. The electromagnetic damage to critical infrastructure components means we're looking at years before essential services can be restored. The supply chains that manufacture replacement parts for power grid equipment are themselves dependent on the power grid. It's a perfect catch, 22. We need electricity to manufacture the equipment necessary to restore electricity. Rural communities with simpler infrastructure might adapt. Urban areas dependent on complex technological systems for basic survival. The mortality projections are beyond anything in recorded history. I've been calculating the numbers on paper, using slide rules and mechanical calculators salvaged from the equipment storage rooms. Conservative estimates suggest 60 to 70% population loss in major metropolitan areas within the first year. Not from the electromagnetic pulse itself, but from the cascade failures, medical equipment, water treatment, food distribution, heating, and cooling systems. Secondary effects will be worse. Social breakdown, resource conflicts, disease outbreaks in areas without functioning medical infrastructure. The demographic collapse will echo for generations. And this was just one solar storm. The sun's magnetic field is still highly active. Earth's protective magnetosphere is still weakened. We could face additional events before we've recovered from this one. I've been thinking about the Carrington event of 1859. Telegraph operators received electric shocks. Some telegraph lines sparked and caught fire, but civilization continued. The technology was simple enough, resilient enough, distributed enough to survive. We built our entire world on the assumption that the sun would behave itself. We created a technological civilization so complex and interconnected that a single space weather event could bring it all down simultaneously. We were so proud of our achievements. Global communication networks, satellite navigation systems, computerized everything. We thought we'd transcended the natural world, insulated ourselves from cosmic forces through human ingenuity. The sun just reminded us we're still living on a small planet orbiting a nuclear furnace that occasionally hiccups. The candle is burning low. The hand crank generator barely holds enough charge for 10 minutes of radio operation. Soon I'll be down to pencil and paper, assuming I can find more paper. But I'll keep documenting. Someone needs to record what happened here. Someone needs to preserve the technical knowledge for whoever comes after us. Someone needs to remember the names of the people who died trying to keep the lights on for just a few more hours. Amaris Pike died trying to restart the power grid. Nyla Chase died trying to save her patients. Aurelia Marsh died trying to help others evacuate. Indigo Strix died trying to keep the emergency networks operational. They all died doing their jobs. They all died believing their expertise and dedication could make a difference in the face of cosmic forces beyond human control. Maybe that's the most human thing of all. When the universe tries to kill us, we don't go quietly. We keep working, keep trying, keep believing that knowledge and determination can overcome anything. Even when they can't. Even when the sun wins. End of entry. Remaining battery power, 3 minutes. Dr. Zephyr Vale, NASA Space Weather Prediction Center. Day 3 after impact. Last light, hour 70 post-impact. Personal log, Dr. Zephyr Vale. Goddard Space Flight Center Emergency Operations. Power source, solar panel array, improvised from calculator components. Date, Day 3, 1,400 hours local time. I found something in the archives that changes everything. This morning, while scavenging through the facility's hard copy storage rooms for more paper and writing materials, I discovered a sealed container of geological survey data from the 1970s. Pre-digital records, stored on microfilm and paper charts, the kind of mundane bureaucratic documentation that somehow survived when our billion-dollar electronic systems died. The data concerns paleomagnetic field strength measurements over the last 780,000 years. Routine scientific work, the kind of long-term baseline research that gets filed away and forgotten until someone needs historical context for current observations. I needed context. I needed to understand whether what we just experienced was a freak occurrence or part of something larger. So I spent 6 hours reviewing magnetic field strength data by candlelight, cross-referencing it with solar cycle records and geological evidence of past electromagnetic events. What I found should terrify anyone who understands the implications. We didn't just get hit by an unusually strong solar storm. We got hit by a perfectly ordinary solar storm during a period of extraordinary planetary vulnerability. The Earth's magnetic field strength has declined 22% over the past 150 years. That's not gradual geological change. That's a dramatic shift happening in real time, on a scale that human civilization has never experienced before. But here's the pattern that made my hands shake as I traced the data points. Every major magnetic field reversal in the geological record correlates with evidence of massive ecological disruption. Not just species extinctions, but complete ecosystem collapses. And every reversal period shows increased volcanic activity, atmospheric disruption, and what the papers euphemistically call enhanced cosmic ray penetration. We're not just in a magnetic field weakening period. We're in the early stages of a complete magnetic pole reversal. The last full reversal was 780,000 years ago. We're overdue by geological standards, and the current rapid field strength decline suggests the process has already begun. The magnetic North Pole has been moving at accelerating speed for the past 2 decades. A phenomenon we've been monitoring but treating as an interesting curiosity rather than a civilizational threat indicator. Current reversal timeline, based on paleomagnetic evidence, 50 to 200 years for complete pole swap. During that entire period, Earth's magnetic protection will be compromised. Every solar maximum, every coronal mass ejection, every space weather event will hit us with the kind of intensity we just experienced. Some will be stronger. The solar storm that just destroyed our civilization was rated X28 on the flare intensity scale. Historical records show X45 plus events occur roughly every 150 years during solar maximum periods. We've been lucky. The last major event happened in 1859 when our technology was simple enough to survive. But we won't stay lucky. The sun's 11-year activity cycle guarantees more storms. The next solar maximum peaks in 2025, just 6 years away. Our magnetic field will be even weaker by then. Mathematical probability of another civilization-ending event within the next decade, 78%. Probability of multiple events, 45%. I'm not documenting a disaster anymore. I'm documenting the beginning of a new geological epoch. One where human technological civilization is fundamentally incompatible with cosmic reality. The ham radio network has been bringing fragments of information from around the globe. Dr. Elena Kowalski at the Australian National University managed to get a shortwave transmission through using jury-rigged equipment powered by car batteries. Her data from the Southern Hemisphere confirms what I've been calculating. Magnetic field measurements show 35% additional weakening in the South Atlantic anomaly region. The protective field is developing holes, Zephyr. We're seeing cosmic radiation at ground level that should be impossible outside of polar regions. Dr. James Okafor's last transmission from the Hermanus Magnetic Observatory in South Africa reported similar findings before his station went dark. Magnetic declination shifting by degrees per day. Navigation systems will be unreliable even after power restoration. The fundamental constants we've used for centuries are changing in real time. The implications cascade through every aspect of technological civilization. Satellite infrastructure, permanent damage. The Van Allen radiation belts that protect orbital assets are disrupted. Any satellite we launch during the reversal period will have dramatically shortened operational life due to cosmic ray bombardment. Navigation systems, GPS, compass navigation, magnetic declination calculations, all require recalibration on a monthly basis during active reversal phases. Maritime and aviation navigation will require return to celestial methods. Power grid hardening, impossible at scale. We can't shield an entire continental electrical grid from electromagnetic events that will occur repeatedly over decades. The hardening infrastructure itself would require more rare earth elements than exist in current global reserves. Communication networks. Long-distance radio propagation patterns will shift unpredictably. Satellite communication becomes unreliable. Fiber optic networks are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse effects at connection points and switching stations. Agricultural systems. Modern farming depends on GPS-guided equipment, computerized irrigation, electronic monitoring. Return to manual farming methods is possible but cannot support current population levels. We built a civilization that requires stable space, weather, and predictable electromagnetic conditions. We're entering a period where neither will exist for the next century. But there's something else in the geological data, something that might be hope or might be the final confirmation of our doom. Archaeological evidence suggests that previous magnetic reversal periods coincided with rapid human technological and cultural development. The last major reversal period saw the emergence of modern human behavior. Sophisticated tool use, artistic expression, complex social organization. It's as if environmental stress forces rapid adaptation. Civilizations that survive magnetic reversal periods emerge more resilient, more adaptable, more conscious of their relationship with cosmic forces. The question is whether any significant portion of our current civilization can survive the transition period. The paleomagnetic record suggests massive population bottlenecks during reversal events. Not extinction, but demographic collapse followed by cultural renaissance. We might be living through the end of the first global technological civilization and the birth of something entirely new. A civilization that builds its technology with cosmic instability as a fundamental design constraint. I've been in radio contact with survivors at 17 different research facilities across North America and Europe. We're forming an informal network, a distributed knowledge preservation system designed to maintain scientific understanding through the transition period. Dr. Sarah Chun at CERN managed to preserve critical physics data on mechanically etched metal plates before the facility lost power. If we're going back to a pre-electronic civilization temporarily, we need to preserve quantum mechanics and particle physics data in formats that don't require computers to access. Professor Michael Brennan at Trinity College Dublin has been working with local craftsmen to create mechanical calculation devices, slide rules, mechanical computers, clockwork mechanisms that can perform astronomical calculations without electronic components. The monks preserved classical knowledge through the Dark Ages using manuscript copying. We need to become technological monks. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's team at the Japanese National Observatory has been developing optical communication systems, mirrors, signal lamps, mechanical semaphore networks that can maintain long-distance coordination without electromagnetic vulnerability. We're creating a hybrid civilization. Electronic knowledge preserved in mechanical form, modern scientific understanding maintained through pre-modern technology. But it's a desperate race against time. The next solar maximum is approaching. Our jury-rigged communication systems may not survive another electromagnetic event. The knowledge we're preserving today might be the foundation for rebuilding in 50 years, or it might be lost forever if we can't maintain the preservation network. The most disturbing realization is how little we actually understand about our own technology. When the computers died, we lost access to the engineering specifications, manufacturing processes, and system integration knowledge that our civilization depends on. How do you restart a nuclear power plant using only mechanical controls? How do you manufacture semiconductor chips without computerized fabrication systems? How do you maintain satellite communication networks when the satellites themselves are being destroyed by cosmic radiation? The answers exist, but they're locked away in electronic databases that require electricity to access. We created a civilization with enormous technical capabilities but almost no mechanical resilience. Indigenous communities with traditional knowledge are going to be crucial for survival. The Inuit still practice celestial navigation. Amish communities maintain non-electric agricultural systems. Rural populations in developing nations never fully adopted electronic dependency. The future belongs to hybrid knowledge, traditional survival skills integrated with preserved scientific understanding, mechanical technology enhanced by theoretical physics, human memory supplemented by physical data storage. I've been calculating resource requirements for a knowledge preservation network that can survive multiple electromagnetic events over the next century. The numbers are daunting but not impossible. 50 geographically distributed preservation sites, mechanical printing capabilities for document reproduction, metal etching systems for permanent data storage, optical communication networks for coordination, manual astronomical calculation capabilities, traditional manufacturing skills for basic technology. Most importantly, human networks, people who understand both the old knowledge and the new reality. Teachers who can pass on quantum mechanics using chalk and blackboards. Engineers who can design electromagnetic resistant systems using slide rules. Leaders who can organize communities around the assumption that the next solar storm is always coming. We're not just rebuilding civilization. We're building a civilization that can survive in the universe as it actually is, rather than the stable cosmos we assumed we lived in. The sun isn't our enemy. It's just a star doing what stars do. We're the ones who built a technological house of cards and then acted surprised when the cosmic wind blew it down. The deeper pattern isn't just about magnetic field reversals or solar storms. It's about the relationship between human ambition and natural forces. We spent the last 2 centuries believing we could transcend natural limitations through technology. The universe just reminded us that transcendence and resilience are different things. Maybe that's the real lesson. Not that technology is bad, but that technology without humility is suicide. Any civilization that wants to survive contact with cosmic forces needs to build with those forces in mind, not pretend they don't exist. The candle is burning low again, but this time I'm not afraid of the darkness. I understand now what we're really fighting for, not the restoration of what we lost, but the creation of something that can't be lost in the same way. Something that bends instead of breaking when the universe decides to test us again. Radio check-in log, 1,500 hours. Active Preservation Network contacts. Dr. Elena Kowalski, Australia Solar Observation Data Preservation. Dr. Sarah Chun, CERN Particle Physics Knowledge Archive. Professor Michael Brennan, Dublin Mechanical Calculation Systems. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Japan Optical Communication Development. Static, Dr. Maria Santos, Brazil Agricultural Adaptation Research. Dr. Ahmed Hassan, Egypt Traditional Astronomy Integration. Signal lost, Dr. Catherine Moore, Scotland Renewable Energy Systems. Network status, operational but vulnerable. Next coordinated contact, 0800 hours tomorrow. Priority: establishment of backup communication protocols. The knowledge will survive. The question is whether we will. Dr. Zephyr Vale, Goddard Space Flight Center. Day 3 after impact. Keeper of the pattern. Hour 71. The Knowledge Vault. Emergency log entry number 127. Dr. Zephyr Vale, NASA Space Weather Prediction Center. Day 3, hour 71 post-impact. Recording: hand crank generator, final battery reserves. The emergency lighting died 12 minutes ago. I'm writing this by the glow of a chemical light stick, one of our last. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm documenting the death of our technological civilization using technology that would have been cutting edge in 1943. Chen's voice crackles through the ham radio from what's left of CERN. Zephyr, you copy? We've got maybe 6 hours of backup power remaining. Need to complete the knowledge transfer protocols now. 6 hours. That's all we have left to preserve 3 centuries of scientific advancement before the last major research facilities go dark permanently. Copy, Chen. Initiating Protocol 7. Protocol 7. We never thought we'd need it. The plan was always theoretical, a worst-case scenario so unlikely that most of us treated it as an academic exercise. Store critical human knowledge in formats that could survive electromagnetic catastrophe. Paper, microfilm, mechanical storage systems, physical archives that couldn't be wiped by solar wind. I'm coordinating 17 facilities across 6 continents, all racing against the same clock. The Australians went dark 3 hours ago. The Brazilians have been silent since yesterday, but we're still here. Scattered points of light in a world suddenly much darker than it was a week ago. Zephyr, this is Bangalore. We've completed the medical archive. Surgical procedures, pharmaceutical formulations, basic life support protocols. Everything's on paper now. Confirmed, Bangalore. Chennai, what's your status on the engineering documents? Nearly complete. Electrical grid construction, water treatment systems, basic manufacturing processes. We're hand-copying the essentials. Hand-copying, like medieval monks preserving ancient texts. Except we're the ones who've become ancient, and our texts are circuit diagrams and chemical formulas. My fingers are cramping from writing, but I can't stop. Every page I complete might be the difference between humanity rebuilding in 50 years versus 500. The mathematics of orbital mechanics. The principles of semiconductor physics, the chemical processes for steel production and antibiotic synthesis. A new voice breaks through the static. Global network. This is Dr. Sarah Kim, Seoul National Observatory. I'm the last one here. Everyone else left to find their families. Her voice wavers. I need to know. Is anyone going to survive this? The radio falls silent. 17 facilities, maybe 30 voices total. We're the last keepers of 10,000 years of accumulated human knowledge, and we're dying along with the power grid. Sarah, I finally respond. We're not trying to survive this. We're trying to make sure humanity can. I can hear her crying through the static. Hell, I'm crying too. But my hand keeps moving across the paper, copying the equations that describe how the sun's magnetic field reverses every 11 years, and how Earth's does the same every few 100,000. Attention all stations. Chen's voice cuts through. We've established contact with the Hardin facility in Colorado. NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain Complex still has power. They're willing to accept our archives. Cheyenne Mountain, of course. Built to survive nuclear war, it might be the only place that can preserve what we're creating. But it's 2,000 miles from here, and every mile between us is a wasteland of dead vehicles and failed infrastructure. Zephyr, a new voice, weak, distant. This is Nyla Chase, Denver General Hospital. My heart stops. Nyla, I thought she was dead with the others. Nyla? Jesus, where are you? Are you safe? Define safe. Her laugh is bitter. I'm in an ambulance about 60 miles outside Denver. Radiological transport, still running on a hardened electrical system. We're heading toward the mountain. I heard your broadcast. I've been copying medical procedures by hand for 2 days. Can you make it to Cheyenne Mountain? Maybe, if this thing doesn't break down. Zephyr, I need you to know, Amaris didn't die from the electrocution. He got the northeast grid section back online for almost 6 hours before the secondary surge hit. Saved thousands of people in the process. The papers blur through my tears. Amaris, brilliant, stubborn Amaris who never met a technical challenge he wouldn't take personally. Of course he'd die trying to bring the lights back on. All stations, this is priority transmission. Chun again. We're implementing the NOAA protocol. Each facility will select their most critical knowledge for immediate preservation. Everything else goes into local caches for potential future recovery. The NOAA protocol. 2 pages of every scientific discipline instead of 2,000. The bare minimum needed to restart civilization, assuming anyone survives to read it. I look at my stack of completed pages. Solar physics, space weather prediction, electromagnetic pulse effects on infrastructure. The very knowledge that let us see this coming but couldn't help us stop it. Chun, what happens if no one comes looking for these archives? What if we're wrong about humanity rebuilding? Static. Then we'll have done our job anyway. Someone has to be the last to remember how far we came. The chemical light is dimming. I can barely see the equations I'm writing, but my hand knows the motions. Maxwell's equations. The mathematics of electromagnetic fields. The science that built our world and the science that watched it die. Final transmission protocol in effect. I announce to whoever's still listening. Each station will conclude with location coordinates for their archives. This is NASA Goddard. Final data cache will be located at. I give the coordinates of the small cave system 3 miles north of here, where we've been storing our completed work. Sarah, you still there? Still here, Zephyr. When this is over, when the radios go quiet, find the highest point you can and watch the sky. The aurora should be visible for weeks. It's beautiful in its way. The same phenomenon that killed our civilization is going to paint the heavens for anyone left to see it. Is that what you're going to do? I look at the pages still left to copy, the knowledge still left to preserve. No, I'm going to keep writing until the last light dies. Someone has to finish the story. A burst of static, then Chen's voice. Weaker now. All stations, CERN is going dark. Final archive complete. It's been an honor working with you all. One by one, the voices fade. Bangalore signs off. Chennai goes silent. The radio reduces to static and the distant, automatic pings of emergency beacons slowly dying across the continent. I'm alone now with my papers and my dying light, copying the formulas that describe how our sun can reach across 93 million miles and switch off every light on Earth with a single magnetic breath. Outside, I can hear them, the survivors, walking along the highway in the darkness. Families with children, elderly people supported by younger ones, all of them moving towards some imagined safety that probably doesn't exist. They're carrying whatever they could grab when the power died. Photographs, medications, a few days of food. I'm carrying the equations that built the satellites they can no longer reach, the physics behind the GPS systems that no longer work, the engineering principles that constructed the power plants that will take years to restart. If anyone finds this cache, if humanity survives to read these pages, they'll understand what killed the world their ancestors built. And maybe, if they're smarter than we were, they'll build the next one to survive the next time the sun decides to teach us humility. The light is almost gone now, but I can still feel the pen in my hand, still remember the shape of the letters and numbers that carry the weight of all human knowledge. In the darkness, I keep writing. Archive location, 39.0458 degrees north, 76.8413 degrees west. Cave system north. Final equipment status. All systems failed. Estimated survivors at Facility 1. Knowledge preservation. 847 pages technical documentation completed. Status: continuing until equipment failure. Day 30. After the Killshot. Personal Journal of Dr. Zephyr Vale. Former NASA Space Weather Prediction Center. Current location: Survivor Settlement, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. Date: 30 days after the Carrington Killshot. Recording method: handwritten journal, ink and paper. I'm writing by candlelight again. Not because we have to anymore. Chen's mechanical generator produces enough electricity for basic lighting, but because I've grown to prefer it. There's something honest about flame that electric light never had. It reminds you that energy is finite, that light is precious, that darkness is the natural state of things. The aurora is still visible some nights, though weaker now. Green curtains dancing across stars that seem brighter than they ever did when we lived under the electronic glow of civilization. Sarah was right to watch the sky. It is beautiful in its way. The same magnetic storm that killed 90% of the technology on Earth still paints the heavens for those of us left to see it. We've learned to tell time by the sun again, to navigate by the stars, to read weather patterns in cloud formations instead of satellite imagery. Skills our great-grandparents took for granted, skills we had to relearn as if they were advanced physics. This morning, I received a message through the ham radio network. 3 sentences, transmitted in Morse code from what remains of the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. Magnetic reversal accelerating. Pole shift estimate, 47 years. Prepare for increased instability, 47 years. I'll be 93 if I live that long. Most of us won't see the next magnetic reversal, but our children will. The children born into this new world, who will never know what it was like to flip a switch and have light appear, to touch a screen and access the accumulated knowledge of humanity. But they'll know other things. They'll know how to preserve food without refrigeration, how to purify water without electric pumps, how to communicate across vast distances without satellites. They'll know how to survive in a world where the sun can reach out and break every circuit we build. The settlement has grown to nearly 200 people. We started with 12 survivors from the Goddard facility who made it to the valley before the secondary infrastructure collapses. Then came the refugees from the cities, first a trickle, then a steady stream of hollow-eyed families carrying everything they owned in backpacks and shopping carts. Dr. Elizabeth Chun arrived last week. She walked here from Switzerland, 2 months of travel through a Europe gone dark, carrying her CERN archives in a military surplus backpack. She's 37 years old and looks 60. But she's alive, and she brought the mathematics of particle physics written in careful longhand on waterproof paper. The knowledge vaults worked, she told me on her first night here. We've had contact with 47 cache sites worldwide. The Cheyenne Mountain Archive is intact. The Svalbard backup facility maintained environmental controls. Even some of the university libraries managed to preserve their critical collections. 47 sites. From the thousands of research institutions that existed before the Killshot, we managed to save 47. But 47 is enough. Enough to remember how to make steel, how to generate electricity, how to synthesize medicines. Enough to ensure that when our children's children rebuild, they won't have to rediscover fire. Nyla Chase didn't make it to Cheyenne Mountain. Her ambulance broke down 50 miles from the facility, and she spent 3 days walking through the Colorado winter carrying her medical archives. She arrived at our settlement 2 weeks ago, frostbitten and exhausted, but alive. She set up a clinic in the old ranger station, treating everything from infected wounds to difficult births with techniques that would have been cutting edge in 1950. Pre-antibiotic medicine isn't primitive, she told me yesterday while stitching up a cut on my hand. It's just more careful. Every infection could kill you, so you learn to prevent them. Every surgery could be your last, so you perfect your technique. We're not going backward, we're learning to be better with less. The hardest part isn't the lack of technology. It's the silence. No electronic hum of machines. No distant roar of highway traffic. No constant buzz of a connected world. Just wind through trees, voices of children playing, the sound of axes splitting wood for winter fuel. The quiet is so complete that it feels like the world is holding its breath. But in that silence, we hear things we never noticed before. The rhythm of the seasons, the patterns of weather, the voices of our neighbors, the sound of our own thoughts, unfiltered by the constant stream of digital information that used to define our existence. We've established contact with settlements across North America through the ham radio network. Most are similar to ours, small communities built around someone with technical knowledge, trying to preserve what they can while adapting to what they must. The Montreal group has managed to restart a small hydroelectric plant. The Seattle settlement has developed improved solar panel manufacturing using salvaged materials. The Austin community has created a functional printing press for duplicating essential documents. Each settlement specializes in different knowledge preservation. We focus on space, weather, and atmospheric physics, crucial for understanding when it's safe to attempt large-scale electrical systems again. The Vermont settlement preserves agricultural science. The Colorado group maintains mechanical engineering. The California survivors work on material science and chemistry. We're not trying to rebuild the world we lost. We're trying to build a better one. One that remembers what the sun can do. One that builds redundancy into every system. One that never again becomes so dependent on a single technology that a solar storm can send us back to the dark ages. The children don't remember the before times. To them, this is normal. They play games that don't require electricity, tell stories that don't need screens, learn mathematics with pencil and paper. They're healthier than we were, stronger, more self-reliant. They're also more connected to each other, more aware of their dependence on community, more grateful for simple pleasures. Yesterday, my neighbor's 8-year-old daughter asked me what a smartphone was. I tried to explain. A device that could access all human knowledge, communicate with anyone on Earth, capture and share images instantly. She listened politely, then asked, "But why would you need to talk to everyone on Earth? Don't you just need to talk to the people who matter?" Out of the mouths of babes, the secondary effects continue to unfold. Ocean currents are shifting as the magnetic field continues to weaken. Weather patterns are becoming less predictable. Some regions are experiencing unprecedented storms while others face severe droughts. The planet itself is adapting to its changing magnetic environment, and we're learning to adapt with it. But we're adapting. Humans are remarkably resilient creatures. We survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and volcanic winters. We survived the collapse of empires and the failure of civilizations. We'll survive this too, though we'll emerge as something different, something that remembers its vulnerability. The aurora is particularly bright tonight, green and gold ribbons dancing across a sky unmarked by aircraft lights or satellite tracks. I can see the Milky Way more clearly than I ever could from the light-polluted cities of the old world. The universe feels closer somehow, more intimate, more real. In 6 months, we'll attempt to establish a hardened communication network between settlements. In 2 years, we hope to have small-scale power generation resistant to electromagnetic interference. In 10 years, we might have regional transportation systems based on mechanical rather than electronic controls. But we'll never again build a world that can be switched off by a solar storm. We'll never again forget that we live at the mercy of a star that's only temporarily stable. We'll never again assume that complexity and connectivity are always improvements over simplicity and self-reliance. The candle is burning low. In the old world, I would have simply switched on an electric light and continued working. Now, I've learned to match my activities to the natural rhythm of day and night, to work when there's light and rest when there's darkness. Tomorrow, I'll teach a class on orbital mechanics to the settlement's teenagers. Not because they need to know how to calculate satellite trajectories, there are no satellites anymore, but because they need to understand how the universe works. How the sun and earth and moon dance together in patterns that repeat across millions of years. How the magnetic field that protects us is part of a larger system that's been changing since the planet formed. They need to know that we're not separate from the cosmos. We're part of it. subject to its laws, vulnerable to its changes, dependent on its stability for our continued existence. The old world forgot that. The new world won't. Outside, someone is playing a guitar. Not an electric guitar, those are museum pieces now, but an acoustic instrument that makes music from nothing but human skill and wooden resonance. The song is something I don't recognize, probably composed after the Killshot by someone who learned to make beauty from the materials at hand. That's what we're all doing, really, making beauty from the materials at hand, building a new world from the wreckage of the old, teaching our children to survive and thrive in a universe that's far stranger and more dangerous than we ever imagined when we lived insulated by technology. The aurora is fading now. The candle has burned down to a stub. Time to sleep and to dream of the world we're building for tomorrow. It won't be the world we lost, but it might be a world worth keeping. Final statistics: Day 30 post-Killshot. Estimated North American survivors, 15 to 20% of pre-event population. Operational settlements, 147 confirmed via radio network. Knowledge preservation sites, 47 active archives. Functional power generation, 12 hardened facilities. Communication network, ham radio, mechanical relay systems. Expected recovery timeline, 50 to 75 years to pre-event technological level. Magnetic field status, continuing to weaken, reversal acceleration confirmed. Personal status, location, permanent settlement, Shenandoah Valley. Role, community educator, knowledge preservation coordinator. Health, stable, adapted to manual labor lifestyle. Mission status, ongoing, preparing next generation for magnetic reversal. Final entry, the sun didn't end the world. It just taught us that the world we built was more fragile than we knew. The world we're building now will be stronger, simpler, more honest about its limitations. It will be a world that remembers what we forgot, that we are part of something larger than ourselves, and that our survival depends on never forgetting that again.